Today we're gonna have a look at the GitHubs Toolkit, but before that we will check out some news. My name is Michael Hausenblas, or MH9 for short, and I welcome you here. All right, let's have a look at the news. There's somewhere an echo. I need to figure that out. How about that? Is that better? That sounds better. Okay. So I hope you can hear me okay. And as I said, first thing on the agenda today is a quick news flash. A couple of things that um, kind of I found interesting to either look at from a tooling perspective or an article that provides some interesting background. The one tool that stood out in the last couple of days was Kubernetes Kube Carrier. You might know Kubernetes under their old name Loads. They made, I think, a wise decision. Hey, Sebastian, um, to rename themselves to Kubernetes. And Kube Carrier, if you look at it, it's relatively new, right? It's relatively early days, but super interesting, right? Um, this cross-cluster management, service catalog. If you've been around for a bit, you might have certain um, associations with that. So check out the docs here to see what it can do for you. And yeah, I I think that's a worthwhile project. That one is a really nice article. It's literally, if you're into Rust, um, essentially one very long page, Rust in like, you know, plain English, quote unquote. Pretty straightforward. Takes you from zero to, well, almost expert. Um, this one is an interesting one. Um, Someone pointed it out to me, and yeah, have a look. It's always important to keep an eye out there and be aware of what can go wrong, right? Awareness. We launched the CIS benchmark for EKS. My colleague and buddy Pavan and myself wrote a blog post about that. So if you're an EKS user, you probably benefit from that now. Um, Again, this is AWS specific. I found that really useful. SCP, service control policies, um, good practices, best practices. I personally always say good practices, but you know, have a look at that. Definitely useful. Another account management related blog post um, by a um, Germany-based AWS consultancy. Um, they are brothers, as far as I know, and yeah, that's a really nice walkthrough in terms of managing multiple accounts. This one is a deep dive, so if you are not into the Linux kernel or the deep um, building blocks of containers, the innards of containers, then maybe you don't really need that. But if you are interested in that, that's really a nice deep dive there. And last but not least, multi-tenancy in terms of network, come with Cilium. Very interesting way to go about that. And again, have it. I read. It's not that long. Should give you some good ideas there. Okay, with that, we get into the GitHubs Toolkit. And the GitHubs Toolkit, as you can see, is a subproject of Flux CNCF Flux CD or Flux. And it's been out now for, I think, a month or so, end of June. I think the first time I came across that, where Stefan Prodan, the creator and main developer of Flagger, presented that at a Nordics, CNCF Nordics meetup. And I found that really super interesting, what's going on here. So I asked him, what's the elevator pitch? And sorry, Stefan, if you're watching, I'm gonna cite that. Building blocks for a Kubernetes native continuous delivery platform. And I would say that's a pretty spot on characterization of that. Pretty sure can benefit from a bit more marketing polish, but if you look at it, what is necessary usually, if you want to benefit from progressive delivery, continuous deployment, then there are a number of components, a bit of integration work, and with that toolkit, that's very nicely done. So essentially you just need one command line tool, that's TK here, and that seems to be a pattern, right? Every tool these days, that's kind of like the cloud native way of going about it. You have your CLI tool there, right? In this case, it's called TK. Guessing something to do with toolkit, and just install that, and with completion, very nice. And yeah, then you can directly use that to bootstrap your Git repository. All of these components here get set up. You've got everything there in terms of the Helm controller, etc. Everything set up for you. And so the way the getting started works essentially is walking you through a setup using kind, which is Kubernetes in Docker, but you can use whatever Kubernetes environment you like. And in this case, it essentially shows you how to swap between or change between staging and production. And if you look at the commands here, it's pretty straightforward, right? The UX is really well done. You have a bootstrap for the initial setup. You have your normal GitOps flow in terms of sending in a pull request or a commit, and then someone reviewing that and merging that. And then you're essentially setting your sources there, and in this case, you change something, force the change in there, and then you kick off that trigger this reconciliation or synchronization with this command. So it's pretty straightforward and nice flow. And again, as a reminder, if you look at the overview diagram here, all these components that you usually would need to take care of yourself, the GitHubs Toolkit essentially bundles that nicely for you, and you can yeah, directly uh, use it in your staging, and then along with that in the production environment as well. Um, so interesting for me as well, if you look at the roadmap, pointing out Flux V2, a couple of things here. And as you can see, making really quite nice progress there. Helm being obviously super popular CNCF project, and with the Helm operator, um, that's that's like Jelly Bean and how's that called? Marmalade? No, whatever. You know what I mean, right? The goes together really well. Um, and yeah, so keep an eye on that. Consider contributing if you are so inclined. And there are a couple of guides. I won't go into greater detail, but I do want to encourage you to have a look at the toolkit, give it a try yourself, um, walking through that, maybe depending um, on your connection in terms of pulling stuff, etc. Maybe 15 minutes or so end to end. It gives you a relatively, especially if you're using a kind cluster here, like suggested, that's just locally. So most of the time is spent essentially pulling the images if they're not yet there. Um, but yeah, this gives you a really nice idea what the GitHub Toolkit potentially can do for you, and where you can, um, where and how you can use it in your own environment. Um, Reminder again, um, in Stefan's words, building block or building blocks for a Kubernetes native continuous delivery platform. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna wrap up there. Um, hey there. I will not attempt trying to pronounce your handle there. Hamid Rasul, maybe. Um, your question is, noticed Helm operator written. How is that different to Helm charts version 2, version 3? Cool. So welcome. And um, I don't know how familiar you are with Helm, but we had that migration from Helm 2 to Helm 3. And nowadays, if you start fresh, definitely Helm 3, no doubt about that. I would need to check directly on the Helm operator um, repo here, where we are in terms of um, version 3. Yeah, it seems both are supported, but to be honest, I would not expect to see a lot of Helm 2 newly freshly deployed. So while you might see a lot of legacy existing Helm 2 floating around out there, going forward, you should definitely focus on Helm 3. There are a few minor sharp edges, um, as I've heard, but by and large, there's really no reason why not to go for Helm 3. And apparently, in the Helm operator, it's already fully supported there. So I wouldn't worry about that. And by and large, if you look at the charts, shouldn't be a huge issue. It's really just from an operation perspective, you don't have tiller anymore, and yeah, the actual um, you know rewrites. I, just as a data point, something that is publicly available. The EKS workshop. So we initially had um, that in Helm 2 and then rewriting that. It was not that much work. It was really just a few commands there. I can't remember. Didn't really capture the time um, how long it took, but it's really very it was really very straightforward. It's essentially just not deploying tiller anymore and adding the repos and yeah, pretty straightforward. Cool. Um, yeah, again, it is early days, and there is a nice. I'm gonna link to that. There is a nice slide deck out there. Let's see if I can find it. Sort of Nordics. Um, Still get. Oh yeah, there's actually even a, a tech talk. Perfect. That's exactly what it is. I'm gonna link that as well. Yeah, as you can see, yeah, a month ago, right, roughly. Um, Obviously, Alexis, the CEO of WeForX, and Stefan will do a way better job than I to explain the underlying motivation. I just wanted to give you a look at it from from the outside as someone who is um, yeah, it's not my project, so I claim to be a little bit objective, and I'm super excited about that. So maybe some of the excitement transfers to yourself. All right. If you have any suggestions for topics, I'm always super interested in learning what you would like to see next week or week after. Um, 2 weeks time, so week commencing August 17th, there will be kind of like KubeCon special. I'm gonna see about that, how that works. It's gonna be a quite rather busy week, but we will somehow manage. But for next week, definitely in the week after KubeCon as well. Again, anything that we could have a look at from more or less a hands-on practical part. It could be something like reviewing a framework, tool, application, setup, architecture. Could be direct in the command line, trying out something. Really up to you. I'm super open to that. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks a lot for dropping by, and yeah, see you around very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye now.